Codemaster, it is already 11. Shall we start? Are everybody ready?
Yes, sir. We are beginning the session. I welcome you all, the teams and the judges, to the court number 5 for the MOOC competition. Today we are having with us Advocate S.N. Shukla and Advocate Dinesh Kumar ji. Dinesh Kumar ji is having 18 years of practice in and he's passed out from CLC Faculty of Law, Delhi University in the year 2003. He's having his practice in criminal and civil and matrimonial cases. He has even handled as major panels of Narcotics Control Bureau and Enforcement Directorate as special public prosecutor. He has also been an employee of Provident Fund Organization, ICICI Lombard General Insurance Company. And according to Sir, the major professional achievement of Sir is that the satisfaction of his clients and their unquestioned faith in him. Next, we welcome you, Sir. The next judge we are having with us is Advocate S.N. Shuklaji. He is having a practice of 13 years in the field. His area of practice is criminal law. He's had he has handled major panels of Delhi State Legal Service Authority, Session Court Panel, Punjab National Bank Panel, Oriental Bank of Commerce Panel, and he is also passed out from Delhi University, Faculty of Law in 2008. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Uh, yes, sir. Now, with the due permission from the judges, I request you to begin the session.
Kindly proceed. Kindly proceed.
Proceed.
Prosecution may begin the session.
Excuse me, Court Master.
Yes.
We would like to provide our time division for the oral rounds.
Yes.
Okay, so Speaker 1 will be taking 13 minutes of time of this Honorable Court, and Speaker 2 will be taking 15 minutes, and 2 minutes are reserved for the rebuttals.
Okay. The defense team may drop their time distribution in the chat box. The court may begin.
Speaker 1, you are not audible. Speaker 1, you are not audible.
Before I begin, I just want to clarify if I'm clearly audible and visible.
Yes, you are audible now.
May it please the court, this is counsel number 1. On behalf of the petitioner in the present case of State versus Sameer and others, before this Honorable House Court of Patiala, the counsel seeks permission to collectively address to the bench as your lordships.
You may kindly address as sir. It would be better if you address as sir.
Okay, sir. May the counsel proceed, sir?
Yes, you may proceed.
Sir, if the bench is well versed with the facts of the case, the counsel would directly move to the issues in hand.
Yes, proceed, please.
Your Lordship, the facts of the case are that on 24th Feb 2015, PA Special Cell New Delhi received information that accused Sameer and Monu had collected huge consignments of fake Indian currency notes from Kalu on 23rd Feb 2015 and started from Malda, West Bengal to Delhi on the same day by Farakha Express, which would arrive at the Old Delhi railway station at 10:55 am on 25th Feb 2015. Based on this information, officers of PA Special Cell raided the train on its arrival at the Old Delhi railway station. During the search, the accused Sameer and Monu were detained. During search of their baggage, 250 notes of fake Indian currency notes of rupees 2000 denomination having face value equivalent to rupees 5 lakhs were recovered from bags of both Sameer and Monu each. Besides this, mobile phone sets with SIM cards, some identity cards, small amount of cash, and railway tickets of train journey were also recovered from their possession. On questioning, they revealed that they had procured the seized currency from Kalu of Malda. They also revealed that out of this consignment, the said notes were to be utilized for bomb blast on Indian Army convoy on 15th August 2015.
Yes, proceed further, please.
Delhi police arrested Sameer and Monu and registered an FIR under Section 120B, 489B, 489C of Indian Penal Code and commenced investigation. The seized notes were sent to Central Forensic Science Laboratory (CBI) at New Delhi for expert examination, and a preliminary report dated 16 April 2015 opined that the seized currency notes is of high quality. Accordingly, the Delhi police invoked offences under Section 15, Subclause 1, Section 16 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. In compliance of the order of Ministry of Home Affairs, the investigation of the case was taken over by National Investigation Agency on 11th May 2015 under Section 120B, 489B and 489C of the Indian Penal Code, Section 16, 17, 18 and 20 of Unlawful Activities Protection Act 1967 were invoked on pursuit of the case record, circumstances of recovery, examination of the expert opinion report of the Central Forensic Science Laboratory (CBI) New Delhi. During the investigation, it was discovered that Peter had committed suicide in a hospital in Rajasthan where he was being treated for poisoning. The investigating team was successful in establishing the real identity of Kalu, and he was arrested from Malda on 23rd June 2015. With that being said, the council would now humbly seek permission to commence with the argument raised in issue number 1, that is, whether the respondents have committed the alleged offence under Section 120A of Indian Penal Code and are liable to be punished under Section 120B of Indian Penal Code or not.
I think first you should first establish the case. Conspiracy part is later on. Once you establish that 2 or 3 persons have done some offenses, thereafter you have to establish that there was a conspiracy between them all. So first try to establish what is the role of each of the accused. Then you have to prove to the court whether they were connected or not. So you first come to the first part first, that how these persons are involved, how each of them is involved.
Yes, sir. The accused one, who is Sohail, was carrying the notes, fake currency notes, and those notes were to be used for the bomb blast in Pulwama, which was planned by.
Just a minute. You had a secret information. Whether this secret information says that they were planning a blast, I think the secret information is just regarding the currency note, fake currency notes. Does your secret information says that they are also planning the blast?
The secret information was about the high quantity of the fake currency notes, and during the investigation, it was recovered that the accused was planning for a bomb blast.
Okay, proceed further.
Sohail was the mastermind of the plan. And he was doing this along with Peter. And after the third accused, Kalu, was taking instructions from them and giving it to the other people. That was Sohail, that was Sameer and Monu. If the council is satisfied, shall I begin with the issue?
Okay, you proceed.
If you
Your Lordship, the Council for Petitioner humbly submits that the respondents have committed the alleged offence under Section 120A of Penal Code 1860 and are liable to be punished under Section 120B of Indian Penal Code 1860 in the light of following argument. The essential ingredient for committing an offence under Section 120A are A. An object to be accomplished, B. A plan or scheme embodying means to accomplish that object, C. An agreement or understanding between two or more of the accused persons whereby they definitely committed to cooperate for the accomplishment of the object by the means embodied in the agreement or by any effectual means, and D. In the jurisdiction where the statute requires an overt act. It is essential that the offence of conspiracy requires some kind of physical manifestation of the agreement. The express agreement, however, need not to be proved, nor actually meeting of two persons is necessary, nor it is necessary to prove the actual words of the communication, the evidence as to transmission of thoughts sharing the unlawful design may be sufficient. A conspiracy is a continuing offence which continues to subsist till it is executed or rescinded or frustrated by the choice of necessity. During its subsistence, wherever any of the conspirator does any act or a series of acts, he would be held guilty under Section 120B of the Penal Code 1860. To constitute a conspiracy meeting of mind of two or more persons for doing an illegal act or an act by illegal means is the first and primary condition, and it is not necessary that all the conspirators must know each and every detail of the conspiracy. Neither it is necessary that every one of the conspirators take active part in the commission of each and every conspirational act. A conspiracy is an inference from circumstances. There cannot always be much direct evidence about it. Conspiracy can be inferred even from the circumstances given rise to a conclusive or irresistible inference of an agreement between two or more persons to commit an offense. The respondents were in constant touch through phone calls and they took the consignment of the fake Indian currency note, which was to be used for carrying out bomb blasts of the Indian army, which established physical manifestation of the agreement for conspiracy. Well, sir, the investigation has clearly established, with the help of technical evidence, that both Samir and Monu in conspiracy with Kalu, Peter, and Sohail were closely associated as a gang which was actively involved in a criminal conspiracy for purchase, procurement, transportation, and financing of high quantity of fake Indian currency notes for distribution across the country, and therefore their such actions clearly are tantamount to a criminal conspiracy to cause damage to monetary stability of India, and therefore they have committed the alleged offence under the said section. The punishment for conspiracy is the same as if the conspirator had abetted the offence. This section applies to those who are the members of the conspiracy during its continuance. Conspiracy has to be treated as a continuing offence, and whoever is a party to the conspiracy during the period for which he is charged is liable under this section. For the purpose of establishing or proving the charge of conspiracy, it is not necessary that there should be knowledge of who are the other conspirators and of the detailed stages of the conspiracy. The necessary requisite is knowledge of the main object and the purpose of the conspiracy. In present case, it has been established that the accused had the knowledge of the main object of the conspiracy, and by abetting the main conspirators and delivering the fake currency, had acted in pursuance of the alleged conspiracy thereof. With this being said, the counsel for petitioner culminates the argument for issue number 1 by affirming that the respondents have committed the alleged offence under section 128 and are liable to be punished under section 120B of the Penal Code with capital punishment or imprisonment for life, and shall be liable to fine as the court may deem fit. Sir, if you are satisfied with the arguments for issue number 1, then the council would like to seek permission to proceed with issue number 2, that is whether the respondent have committed the alleged offence under section 121 and 123 of Indian Penal Code or not.
Is there any other? I'm sorry. Is there any other document of proof except from the CDR to prove the conspiracy between the accused persons? You have exhibited CDRs, the call detail records. Other than that, do you have anything else which proves the active meeting of mind of the accused persons?
Sir, in the facts, the accused themselves revealed that they were raising funds, and while they were raising funds, they were even getting 10% of commission for raising it.
Okay, Mr. Shukla.
Yes, whether the disclosure statement of the co-accused person is admissible.
Sir,
You may rely only upon the sole disclosure statement of the co-accused.
Sir, according to section 27 of Indian Evidence Act, the disclosure that has been done by them can be taken, and more than that, as the council have talked about the circumstantial evidences, they are enough to prove that the accused were involved in the whole plan.
If anything has been recovered from the on the basis of said disclosure statement, then said disclosure statement can be relied upon. Yes, you may proceed further.
Thank you, sir. The council humbly submits that the respondent have committed the alleged offence under section 121 and 123 of IPC 1860 in the light of following arguments. In the case of Adnan Bilal Mullah versus State of Bombay, it was held that it is not necessary that any act or illegal omission should have taken place in pursuance of conspiracy. In the case of State versus Navjot Sandhu, the court observed that single most important factor which impels to think that this is case of waging war or attempting to wage war against the government of India is the target of attack chosen by the slain traitors and conspirators and the immediate objective sought to be achieved thereby. The battlefield selected was the Parliament House complex, which is symbol of the sovereignty of the Indian Republic. The undoubted objective and determination of the deceased was to impugn the sovereign authority of the nation. and its government. Even in the conspired purpose, if the objective falls short of installing some other authority or entity in the place of an established government, it does not detract from the offense of waging war. Similarly, the Indian Army convoy was chosen by the respondents to be attacked in pursuit of their conspiracy is a symbol of sovereignty of the Indian Republic, and this proves their objective to impugn the sovereignty authority of the nation. Had the respondents not been detained and been successful in trafficking the fake Indian currency notes to Pulwama to carry out the bomb blast, that would have spelled disaster to entire nation. Hence, it can be concluded that the respondents have committed the offence under the said section and are liable to be punished with capital punishment or imprisonment for life, and shall also be liable for fine as the court may deem fit. Moving ahead in the same issue, the Council humbly submits that the essential of Section 123 are being fulfilled. The essential elements of the said section are: A. There must be an existence of design which is prepared to wage war against the government of India. The concealment should be done with intention of facilitating the war against the government of India. C. The person should be knowing about the concealment of the design. The accused in the present case knew about the planning and were part of the conspiracy of the waging war as well. It can be inferred from the fact that the respondents were aware about the conspiracy to wage war against the government of India but still concealed about it, and that such concealment would facilitate the waging of war. It can be inferred from this fact that the accused that have been aware about trafficking of fake currency, the fact that they acted in furtherance of the conspiracy and did not disclose about the same to any public servant, is sufficient enough to infer that they intended to conceal and are guilty under the section. To support this argument, the Council requests your Lordship to refer to page 24 of the written submission, in which Council have cited the case of Shaukat Hussain Guru versus State of Delhi, where Shaukat, who was cousin of Afzal, even after knowing that Afzal has been collaborating with terrorists, did not inform officers. Therefore, even though he was not involved in any movement with any terrorist, but since all the ingredients of the said sections are fulfilled, he was held guilty under the said section. In case of Mohammad Ajmal Mohammad Amir Kasab versus State of Maharashtra, the Honorable Supreme Court stated that if a person knowingly conceals about waging of war, they will be held under this section. Therefore, since the accused were also in constant contact with Peter and Sohail, who were planning bomb blast as soon as the fake Indian currency notes would reach Pulwama, and the accused were responsible for the trafficking of them, it is evident that they were also part of the conspiracy and they were aware about the same. Hence, it can be concluded that the respondents have committed the offence under the said section and are liable to be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 10 years and shall also be liable to file with the arguments made. Then Council 1 would rest her argument, and it is humbly request to your Lordship to allow my co-counsel to proceed with further arguments.
Speaker number 2, proceed.
Your Lordships, before I start with the arguments, I would like to clarify if I am properly audible and visible.
Yes, you are audible.
Much obliged. May it please the court, this is counsel number 2 for the petitioner appearing before this honorable court in the present case. The counsel humbly seeks permission to proceed to issue number 4, that is, whether the respondents have committed the alleged offences under section 489B and 489C of the Indian Penal Code or not.
You may kindly proceed.
Thank you, sir. It is humbly submitted that the respondents have committed the offence under section 489B and 489C of the Indian Penal Code and therefore are punishable in the light of the following arguments. To bring home an offence under section 489C of the Indian Penal Code, A, the prosecution is to prove that the relevant currency note or banknote was forged or counterfeit. B, that the accused sold to or received from some person or trafficked in or used as genuine the aforesaid currency note. C, that when the accused did so, he had the knowledge or reason to believe about it being forged or counterfeit. Such intention can be proved by a collateral circumstance that he had palmed off such notes before, or that he was in possession of such notes in such a large number that his possession for any other purpose was inexplicable.
When you, just a minute, Speaker 2, when you say that he was in possession, whether the possession was a conscious possession or he doesn't know what he possesses. If you refer to the statement of accused number 1 and accused number 2 in defense, the statement which they have given in defense, they have clearly stated that they didn't know what the bag contains. So, can this particular possession be termed as a conscious possession?
Yes, sir, it can be termed as a conscious possession because during the investigation they had revealed that they received these bags from Kalu from Malda, and prior to this possession they have been also involved in previous transactions. This can be enough to prove that they had the conscious possession of the said counterfeit currency.
As per your evidence or the investigation report, did they get something out of it for doing this job? What was their consideration?
Sir, it has not been revealed in the facts that they had received any remuneration for doing these such acts.
Kindly proceed.
Much obliged. The essential ingredients of section 489C of the Penal Code are that A, the note in question is a counter currency note or banknote. B, the such note was forged or counterfeited. C, the accused was in possession of the currency note or banknote. D, the accused intended to use the same as genuine. E, the accused knew or had the reason to believe the note to be forged. In the case of Manirul Molvi Mustafa versus State of Maharashtra, the amount of counterfeit currency notes recovered from the appellants was not insignificant. This infers that they had the knowledge of possession of counterfeit currency notes, and the appellants were found guilty under the said section. In the case of Mohammad Salim Balim versus State of Rajasthan, it was held that the endeavor to circulate counterfeit currency notes in the market is an offense of grave nature under section 489B and section 489C of the Indian Penal Code. The said counterfeit notes can be used to fund criminal activities which are posing a serious threat to the nation, breaking and paralyzing its economy. In the present case, Samir and Monu intended to deliver fake currency on the orders of Kalu. The accused had knowledge of possessing the fake currency notes, and hence mens rea stands established. The respondents neither innocently possessed the fake currency notes nor it came into their possession accidentally. All the essential ingredients of the offense stand fulfilled. The amount of counterfeit notes they possessed is not insignificant, and they had a clear intent to disturb the economic stability of the country. In the light of the foregoing arguments, the petitioner humbly submits that it can be factually inferred that the provisions of section 489B and 489C of the Penal Code can be provoked, and respondents are liable to be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 10 years and shall also be liable for a fine as the court may deem fit. The council humbly seeks permission to commence with arguments raised in issue number 4, that is, whether the respondents have committed the alleged offence under section 201 of the Indian Penal Code or not.
Kindly proceed.
Much obliged. The council humbly submits before the Honorable Court that the respondents have committed the offence under section 201 and therefore will be held liable in the light of the following arguments. The ingredients for an offence under section 201 are: A, that the offence has been committed; B, that the accused knew or had the reason to believe the commission of such an offence; C, that with such knowledge or belief he caused any evidence to disappear or gave an information which is false or believed that it is false; D, that he did so as aforesaid with the intention of screening the offender from legal punishment. It can be held that conviction under the main offence is not necessary to convict the offender under section 201. It is not necessary that the offender himself should have been found guilty of the main offence for the purpose of convicting him of the offence under section 201. Nor is it absolutely necessary that somebody else should have been found guilty of the main offence. It has been observed in the case of Abdul Qadir versus State that it must be proved that an offence, the evidence of which the accused is charged with causing to disappear, has actually been committed, even if the accused believes that an offence has been committed and still tries to conceal about it, then he can be held guilty under the said section. To constitute an attempt to commit an offence, it is not essential that the last proximate act must be done by the accused. It is evident that the accused did try to conceal the facts even after knowing and understanding about the offence they were committing, and the accused A3 even destroyed the evidences from the house of accused A5, that is Sohail. Therefore, the accused should be held guilty under the section 201 of Indian Penal Code and shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 7 years and shall also be liable to a fine as the court may deem fit. Now, if your lordships are satisfied with the argument, Now, sir, if you are satisfied with the arguments for issue number 4, then the council would like to seek permission to proceed to issue number 5, that is, whether the respondents have committed the alleged offences under section 16, 17, 18 and 20 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 or not.
Kindly proceed.
Proceed.
Much obliged. The counsel for the petitioner humbly submits that before the Honorable Court that the respondents have committed the offence under section 16 and 17 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and therefore will be held liable in the light of the following arguments. As per disclosure of accused A3, he collected fake Indian currency notes worth of rupees 10 lakhs from accused A5 for sending it to Pulwama through accused A1 and A2, and where it had to be collected by accused A4 to carry out a bomb blast on the convoy of Indian Army on 15th August 2015. Since the accused were not only involved with a group against India that was planning for a bomb blast, but were also involved in damaging the monetary stability of India by smuggling the high quality counterfeit currency. The accused were involved in the conspiracy and the steps of action against the integrity, sovereignty, and unity of the country. They were involved in possession and smuggling of the high quality fake currency, which affects the monetary stability of the country. A person who raises, collects, or provides fund to an individual having knowledge of the fact that those individuals are involved in terrorist acts would come under the net of section 17 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act as stands amended in the year 2008. Irrespective of the fact as to whether he knows or does not know as to what exact terrorist act was planned to have been committed, in as much as section 17 makes even such a person liable who, knowing that the fund which he raises, collects or provides is likely to be used by a person to commit a terrorist act. This criminal liability is imposed on him irrespective of the facts as to whether the fund is actually used or not for the commission of the terrorist act. In the present case, it is clearly established that the respondents were directly involved in raising and collecting funds that they were to be used for carrying out the bomb blast. Even if the fund is actually not used for the commission of the terrorist act, the accused can be still convicted for the offense of raising and collecting funds for committing a terrorist act. Merely attempting to raise any fund is punishable under section 17 of the UAPA. Hence, the respondents have committed the alleged offences under section 16 and 17 and are liable to be punished with imprisonment for life and shall also be liable to a fine as the court may deem fit. Now, the counsel humbly submits before the Honorable Court that the respondents have committed the offence under section 17 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. A reading of section 18 of the Act of 2004 makes it clear that not only conspiracy to commit act is made punishable, but attempting, advocating, abetting, advising, inciting the commission of a terrorist act is also made punishable. It is not necessary that the person who intends to aid a terrorist act, it would be sufficient proof for imposing penalty under section 18 if the prosecution is able to prove that the accused person had the knowledge that his acts or omissions would facilitate the commission of a terrorist act. In the present case, the respondents were closely associated as a gang which was actively involved in a criminal conspiracy for purchase, procurement, transportation, and financing of the extremely high quantity of the fake Indian currency notes for distribution across the country, and therefore their such actions are clearly tantamount to create terrorist conspiracy with a gang causing damage to the monetary stability of India. The analysis of the call detail records and the phone data of the phone seized from the accused A1 and A2 clearly established their movement from Madhya Pradesh to West Bengal, and frequent telephonic conversations between accused A1 and A3 and A4 and A3 on 23rd of Feb 2015 prove their association with the criminal conspiracy. Hence, it can be concluded that the respondents have committed the alleged offences under section 18 of the UAPA and are liable to be punished with imprisonment for life and shall also be liable to a fine. The counsel humbly submits before the Honorable Court that the respondents have committed the offence under section 20 of the UAPA 1967. In the case of State versus Bashir Ahmad Ponu, the acts of the accused were preparatory to the commission of the offence of waging war and abetting the same by entering into a criminal conspiracy and concealing with the intent to facilitate the waging of war. The prosecution has proved beyond reasonable doubt that the accused entered into a criminal conspiracy to wage war against the country and collected arms, ammunition, and explosives with the intention to wage war and concealed the design thereof. All the respondents having acted as members of a terrorist gang involving and facilitating in the commission of a terrorist activity are convicted for the offense punishable under section 20 of the UAPA. It can be concluded from above case that since the respondents are closely associated as members of a gang which works as a terrorist organization deliberately trying to hurt the unity and integrity of the country, they can be prosecuted under the said section. Hence, the respondents have committed the alleged offences under section 20 and are liable to be punished with imprisonment for life and shall also be liable to a fine as the court may deem fit. In the State versus Captain Jagjit Singh, the Honorable Court observed, among other considerations which a court has to take into account in deciding whether bail should be granted in a non-bailable offence, is the nature of the offence, and if the offence is of a kind in which bail should not be granted, considering its seriousness, the court should refuse bail even though it has very wide powers under section 498 of the Criminal Procedure Code. The respondents of this case had conspired with common intention to wage war against the government of India. The investigation has produced enough evidences and therefore it can be prima facie established that their guilt has been proved beyond all reasonable doubts. Hence, the respondent shall be denied bail under provisions of section 43D subclause 5 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. With this being said, if your lordship, if sir, you are satisfied with the arguments made, the counsel for the petitioner rests their contentions and humbly seeks permission to recite the prayers before this honorable court.
Yes.
Pardon, sir?
Yes, you may proceed.
Am I audible?
You are audible, speaker number 2.
Shall I proceed with the prayer, sir?
Kindly proceed. Kindly proceed. Only 2
Much
minutes.
obliged. In the lights of the facts presented, issues raised, arguments advanced, and authorities cited, the counsel for the petitioner they hereby most humbly submit before this honorable Patiala House Court. It may be pleased to first declare the respondents guilty and liable to be charged under sections 120B, 489B, 489C, 121, 123, and 201 of the Indian Penal Code 1860, and under sections 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. Second, pass an appropriate order to declare illegal and ban the terrorist gang of the respondents. Third, direct the respondents to pay the fines as the court may impose. Fourth, deny any appeal for bail of the respondents. The court, being satisfied, may in like manner make any such demand and pass any other order, direction, or relief that this honorable court may regard fit in the light of justice, fairness, equity, and good conscience. And for this act of kindness, the counsel for the petitioners might, as compelled bound, ever humbly pray, all of which is respectfully submitted by the counsel appearing for the petitioner.
Under which provision of law this gang can be banned?
Sir,
You said
section,
that- Yes, please.
section 20 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act.
And what was your fourth prayer regarding appeal of bail, something like that?
Yes, it was to deny the bail of the respondent, sir.
Are they on bail or they are on are in the custody?
They are in the custody, and if they apply for the bail, they should be denied.
Can you claim for denial of bail in a final argument stage?
Yes, I think, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Team 2 may proceed.
Sir, am I audible and clear?
You are audible.
Thank you, sir. Sir, may I proceed with the statement of jurisdiction?
Yes, please.
Much pleasure, sir. The counsel for the respondents, Samir and others, hereby humbly approach Honorable Court of Lodi Special Judge NIA, Patiala House Court, New Delhi, under Section 173, Clause 2, Subclause 1 of CRPC. The respondent would humbly submit to the jurisdiction of this Honorable Court. Sir, can I proceed with the statement of charges?
Please proceed.
Yes, sir. Sir, here Samir, Monu, and Kalu, being accused number 1, 2, and 3 respectively, has been charged with criminal conspiracy under Section 120B, counterfeiting currency notes or bank notes under
489B, using as genuine, forged or counterfeiting currency notes or bank notes under Section 489C, waging attempt to wage war or abetting waging of war against the Government of India under Section 121, concealing with intent to facilitate design to wage war under Section 123, and causing disappearance of evidences of offence or giving false information to screen offender under Section 201 of the Indian Penal Code and Sections 16, 17, 18, and 20 of the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 as amended. So, if you are satisfied, can I move on to the synopsis of facts, sir?
Please, please.
Thank you, sir. So, based on the secret information which was passed by an anonymous phone call from a pawn shop owner named Guddu Singh being complainant to the officers of Delhi Police Special Cell, Lodhi Road, New Delhi, have raided a general coach number 2 of Farakka Express train. And the source of secret information from Guddu Singh about the transfer of FICNs is questionable, sir. And without immediately filing the FIR, even when the information was received on 24th February 2015, and not mentioning the incident in daily report, have made us think whether they have fabricated the FIR and created some fake allegations against the respondents Monu and Samir. And also, besides the delay in filing of FIR, they didn't even conduct any medical examination. Here, a doubt also raised, sir, whether the police officers made accused aware of their rights. Rights guaranteed under Article 22 and Article 20, Clause 3 of the Constitution of India. And during the search, two suspect persons, Samir and Monu, being A1 and A2, were detained. And further, during the search of their baggage, having 250 notes of high quality fake Indian currency notes of 2000 denomination, having face value equivalent to 5 lakhs, were recovered from bag of Samir and 5 lakhs from bag of Monu respectively, in total of 10 lakh rupees. But both the accused have no knowledge about the fake currency notes as per the information given to the Delhi police. They were just transferring as per the directions of Kalu. And also here a doubt has been raised that whether they are transferring these fake currency notes for their own favor voluntarily or under coercion by Kalu, being A3, as a part of the business deals. Besides the above mentioned quality of FICNs, mobile phone sets with SIM cards, some identity cards, and small amount of cash and general railway tickets, all these are also collected. Sir, but according to Section 65B of Indian Evidence Act, there is no certificate of admissibility of these, sir. So I just want to bring to your kind notice that these material evidences are not valid. Samir and Monu were revealed that when they have taken into custody on 25th February, they have revealed that the involvement of Kalu and also Peter being A4. And these two accused, Samir and Monu, are receiving fake Indian currency notes from Kalu as a part of business deals, but not something like a bomb blast or a criminal conspiracy and waging of war. It's not a part of the criminal conspiracy, sir, but it's just their part of a daily life, as Samir being a driver in profession and Monu being an agriculturist, a farmer in profession. So this is just a business dealing things. And
Can you do a business of fake currency notes, even if they are not being used for a bomb blast? Is it legal to deal in a business of fake currency notes?
Indeed, sir. Indeed, it's not legal to do, but it's not such an offense like waging of war. Waging of war is such a serious offense compared to the transfer of fake Indian currency notes. I think so, in my assumption.
Okay, proceed further.
And accordingly, the special cell police arrested the two accused, Samir and Monu, and registered an FIR with under sections 120B, 489B, 489C of IPC 1860 at police station New Delhi, dated 25th February. And in the pursuance of the order issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, New Delhi, directing NIA to investigate the case, NIA have re-registered the case on May 11, 2015 under sections 120B, 489B, 489C of Indian Penal Code and commenced investigation. Subsequently, sections 16, 17, 18 and 20 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967 was invoked after receipt of preliminary report of CFSL, CBI New Delhi, declaring seized FICN as a high quality and orders of competent authority. They have registered the case under 16, 17, 18, and 20 of UAPA 1967, even when no evidences were found regarding the explosive items, and there is no death caused because of these respondents' side. And in the interrogation, both the accused are made to disclose that they had collected these currency notes from their associate Kalu, A3 resident of Kaliachek, Malda, and they have to deliver these fake currencies in Pulwama, Jammu and Kashmir to Peter, who have contacted them. They further informed that said notes were being utilized for bomb blast on Indian Army convoy on 15th of August 2015. Accordingly, Samir and Monu were arrested even when they are not a part of this conspiracy. They don't have an intention to plan or facilitate or participate in the bomb blast or any conspiracy part. In this examination by Special Cell, Delhi police accused Samir disclosed several names of associates in this organized supply and purchase of FICNs, namely Peter. He stated that he used to receive 10% commission on each deal. He disclosed that he and Monu used to receive consignments of FICNs from Kaliachek Malda and travel in general coach of train, but no evidence were found on this part or previous previous previously they have committed any fake Indian currency transfer issues. There is no evidence regarding this. Delhi police staff searched the house and premises of Peter on 27th and 28th of February 2015, but he was found absconding. The investigation of the case was taken over by NIA. The accused Samir and Monu were examined in police custody of NIA after obtaining police custody from this honorable court. The doubted fact is that Sir Samir and Monu have admitted their involvement in this case and disclosed the involvement of other accused persons Kalu, A3, Peter, A4 and Sohail A5, whether forcibly or voluntarily is doubted. The police officers during the investigation have collected the call detail records. Also, this is invalid when we compare to the section 65B of Indian Evidence Act. During investigation, the field team of NIA
Can you
camp
where the section 65B of Indian Evidence Act be used? What is section 65B of Indian Evidence Act?
Sir, actually, when evidences relating to the electronics or some that kind of material evidences, some authorities or some certified authorities have to certify that these evidences can be valid or taken as evidence in the part of this offence, sir.
Which authority can issue the certificate under section 65B?
Sorry, sir, I am not aware of it.
Yes. As per section 65B, only the person who has issued that electronic record who can issue the certificate of authenticity of that document. Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you for acknowledging me, sir. Sir, during the investigation of the field team of NIA camping at border district Agar Malwa, Madhya Pradesh, got information that accused Peter A4 has been admitted in SK Hospital, Rajasthan for treatment of poisoning. On receipt of above information, a team of officers were sent to Rajasthan on 19th May 2015 for investigation and to verify the information. The team confirmed that the wanted accused of the instant case Peter was indeed admitted in SK Hospital as a case of poisoning, where he expired during the treatment on 22nd June 2015. The cause of death was suicide as per the hospital and the management, but it's a suspicious death since it's happened just 3 days after the accused was in surveillance of NIA. And the NIA neither found out the reason for the sudden unnatural death or suicide of the Peter nor conducted postmortem even when he is assumed as the main conspirator. NIA was out of the NIA bought as a mystery that Peter's death is a custodial, whether it's a custodial death or something like that. The death of the Peter has adversely affected the investigation as it now becomes difficult to find out what would have been the real facts and whether the investigation is fair or not. This is beyond reasonable doubt and it is not clarified by the petitioner side, sir. Accused Kalu A3 was questioned about the involvement and role of accused Sohail, but he gave emphasized answer about the same. It will not be the safe place to mention that he did not provide any details of whereabout of Sohail, and it is clearly magnified that NIA was unable to cite or come up with the evidence to prove the guilt of accused, but they only have gained information from the statements of accused, which are self-incriminating statements, which is violating to Article 20, Clause 3 of the Indian Constitution. And without any torture, no accused will open up themselves about the self-incriminating statements, hence the accused may be compelled to answer. And on 23rd June 2015, Kalu was arrested, and during examination police custody, Kalu revealed that he received fake Indian currency notes from accused Sohail on several occasions in the past for further sale and transactions, and also said that Sohail have contact with the Lashkar-e-Taiba from Pakistan and Bangladesh. He further revealed that Sohail was planning to execute bomb blast on Indian Army convoy on 15th August 2015. He revealed that Sohail crossed the border at night and went to Bangladesh on 20th June 2015, but NA failed to find out any evidence against Sohail nor tried to find out where Sohail is.
You are owning the statement. You are admitting the statement given before the investigator by one of the accused. You said that you are saying that Sonu said so regarding Sohail and all. That means you are owning the statement. You are admitting that this statement has been voluntarily given by the accused.
Sir, it is this question I am leaving to the honorable judge, sir, because we don't know the real fact.
But you have to. You are defending one of the accused, and you are basically relying on his statement. That means that you are admitting the statement. That is why you are relying on the statement.
Sir, actually, I think they are admitting, but I doubt whether it is compelled to answer. And also, I think, sir, one accused can't give another statements about another accused and it not be admissible. I think, sir.
Kindly proceed.
Thank you, sir. And during the examination, the Kalu have said all these about Sohail, and Sohail was not found where was not found by the NIA, nor even any investigation was done on the part of Sohail. So NIA have said that they found a public witness named Shaurak Khan had seen Sohail A5 on 20th June 2015 at about 8:23 am with two persons, that is Kalu A3 and some unknown person with black kurta and pajama. When it comes to a public witness, sir, a person can remember the number of persons visited the location, but here in this case, the admission of presence of persons in a particular place at a particular time along with the dress code and dress color is doubted, sir. Samir was charged for commission of offences as noted sections 120B, 489B, 489C, sections 121 and 123, section 201 of IPC. Sir, here he is charged with also 201 IPC, but he have not given any false evidence or he neither destroyed any evidence. Then why Samir is charged with section 201 is also questioned, sir. And on further investigation, NIA stated that the accused persons have been actively dealing FICNs and assisting local militant groups, and on the basis of statement of witness persons under and other evidence, the NIA has established a prima facie case against the accused person under sections 16, 18 and 20 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967, apart from other offences. So there is a common friend of Samir and Monu named Iqbal Khan. Iqbal Khan has been friendly with Samir and Monu. Since they came to Delhi, he met Sohail in one of the general meetings of the Social Impact Initiative, and from then onwards they became good friends. Based on the information received from Iqbal Khan, their common friend, we can observe that the accused persons Sohail and Monu, A3 Kalu were very well-mannered people, and they are just from a youth organization, but not from any terror group. They just wanted to. They are just innocent civilians who are disappointed with the ruling of the government. Sir, if you are satisfied with the facts, I want to move on to the issues raised, sir.
Kindly proceed.
Thank you, sir. Whether accused have any criminal record in the past, whether delay in filing FIR gave scope to fabrication of the FIR, whether the statements made by the accused during the investigation can be taken into consideration as evidence against themselves. Sir, I want to briefly explain these issues with your permission, sir.
Kindly.
So here in the concerned case, it is very clear that none of the accused have any past criminal record, and they are all innocent civilians who are just disappointed with the ruling of the nation. It is humbly submitted before this honorable court that the accusations on the accused are false and malicious, sir. And every criminal trial shall be begin with the presumption of innocence in the favor of accused. And the basic structural principle of criminal justice system in India is that the benefit of doubt must always be extended in the favor of accused. Thousand culprits can escape, but one innocent should not be punished. And impartial investigation is very much essential for the fair trial of the accused. A fair investigation is also a constitutionally guaranteed right under Articles 20 and 21 of the Indian Constitution, which was held in the case Babubai versus State of Gujarat. Fair investigation compromises of components like honestly, competence, and collection of proper evidence in the context of criminal case. And NIA in this case failed to produce sufficient, viable, and strong evidences against the accused, making the investigation process impartial and biased, which will be discussed further. So, with your permission, I'll move on to the second issue, sir.
Kindly proceed.
Thank you. Whether the statements made by the sorry, sir, whether delay in filing FIR gave scope to fabrication of the FIR. So FIR means first information report. The name itself speaks that the information should be registered as soon as it is received by the concerned police officer. First, it is only after the investigation of the FIR the police can take up the investigation. But here, the police filed the report after the seizure of notes and detention of the accused. Then provides high chance to the police
How much
officer.
is the delay? How much is the delay in registration of FIR?
So when the information is received on 24th of February, the police have filed a FIR on 25th February, sir, at 10:55 hours. So there is a chance for the police officer for fabricating the FIR and creating fake allegations to make the innocent people liable. And when a person is in police custody, he is presumed to be at his vulnerability, and there are high chances of him being subjected to force, violence, and undue influence by the police officers. Sir, with your permission, I'll move on to the third issue, sir.
Kindly.
Whether the accused are whether the statements made by the accused during the investigation can be taken into consideration as evidence against themselves. So the statements made by the accused while he is in the custody cannot be taken into consideration. Such statements are protected from being used as evidence under Section 24 and 25 of the Indian Evidence Act and Section 162 Clause 1 of the Criminal Procedure Code. And it is humbly submitted before this honorable court that the statements of Samir and Monu and Kalu are the self-incriminating nature, and hence they can't be considered to prove the accusations charged on them, as they are protected constitutionally guaranteed fundamental right under Article 20 Clause 3, sir. And also in Section 154 in the Code of Criminal Procedure, it is said that every information relating to the commission of a cognizable offence, if it is given orally, should be reduced to writing. But according to the exhibit number 1, the FIR is filed in a oral manner, sir. So it can't be taken into consideration. Also, according to Section 25 of Indian Evidence Act provides that no confession made to a police officer shall be proved as against a person accused of any offence. Also, Section 26 of Indian Evidence Act provides that no confession made by any person whilst he is in custody of a police officer, unless it be made in the immediate presence of a magistrate, shall be proved as against such persons. So, if you are satisfied, I'll let my co-counsel to detail you before this honorable court the other issues.
Go ahead.
The council seeks permission to move further, sir.
Please kindly proceed.
Whether the accused are made aware of their rights and is there an infringement of Article 20, Clause 3 of the Indian Constitution. Sir, Section 162 of the CRPC forbids the statements of prosecution witness for comparing with one another. Here, under this section, statement is referred as a narration addressed to a public officer by another. It also includes the confessions made during the investigation and any other statement of the accused persons. The reason for the prohibition of this statement is for the purpose of the corroboration that the police cannot be trusted for the recording the statements correctly, and as they are often taken into the hazardous manner in the midst of the crowd and confusion. According to Section 162 of CRPC, in our present case, all the statements that NIA had claimed have been said that the accused about the transferring of the fake Indian currency notes, that is the FICNs, and the Terror Act can't be taken into consideration. Since NIA has failed to obtain sustainable evidence to prove that the accused involved in the wage war and criminal conspiracy. The accused have only disclosed their involvement in the case about the attack on the army convoy. But police can't always be trusted about the recordings of the statements that are said by the that are said by the accused. Here, under these circumstances, the respondents' counsel contends that the statements admitted by the accused are due to the coercion and unreasonable force has been used by the NIA for making them admit the offences charged on the accused. Sir. As per the Article 20, Clause 3 of the Indian Constitution, no accused of an offence shall be compelled to be witness against himself. Here in the concerned case, Samir, Monu, and Kalu are protected for being convicted. So here we in the case Nandini Satpathy versus Danny and another. In Nandini Satpathy versus Danny and another, the right to remain silent during the process of investigation or interrogation has been held legal by the Honorable Supreme Court. Sir. Here, Samir A1, Monu A2, and Kalu A3 have there is an infringement of their legal right, that is right against self-incrimination, by making them to admit the offences which they have not done. Sir. If the counsel is satisfied, can I proceed with the next issue, sir?
Kindly proceed.
Proceed.
Thank you, sir. Whether the call record reports can be considered as evidence in complaints with Section 65B of Indian Evidence Act 1872. Here, according to Section 65B of Indian Evidence Act, the main essential element is to get certificate identifying the electronic record for the admissibility of such records as evidence. Such certificate shall identify the electronic record and describe the manner in which it was produced, and it shall also be signed by the person occupying a responsible position in relation to the operation of the relevant device. Here, the Honorable Supreme Court has held that in the case Ashok alias Bobby versus State, that the CDRs that are presented as evidence at the trial were not acceptable to the learned trial judge due to the absence of the supportive certification to its admissibility under Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act. In the concerned case, NIA claimed that call detail records have played an important role in solving the case, but where the traveling of the accused from Madhya Pradesh to West Bengal in furtherance of their association with the criminal conspiracy. But the CDRs and the phone data which are collected by the NIA from the accused, which are seized, cannot be considered as an evidence due to the lack and the fail to accompany the certificate for admissibility under Section 65B of the Indian Evidence Act. If the counsel is satisfied with the argument, can I continue with the next issue, sir?
Yes, proceed.
What could have been the reason for the unnatural and suspicious death of Peter? So here I would like to say an previous days, that is, the wrongdoer is accountable and the state is responsible only if the person in custody of the police is deprived of his life according to the procedure established by law. Here, the Honorable Supreme Court in one of its landmark case, Munshi Singh Gautam death and others versus State of Madhya Pradesh, it was held that the courts must not lose sight of the fact that the death in police custody is perhaps one of the heinous crime in this civilized society.
Just a minute, speaker number 2. Is this case relates to the death of a person in the police custody? We are talking this case. The case of the prosecution is regarding the offense committed by the accused who have been arrested. But I think again you are on the death in the police custody. How does it matters? What relevance this fact, the death in the police custody, has to the offense committed by the other accused persons?
Indeed, sir. So, in the fact report, we can clearly identify that Peter has been absconded earlier, and later on 19th June 2015, he was the NIA came to know that Peter was admitted in the SKA hospital, Rajasthan, and later on 22nd June he was found dead. It means that from 19 to 22, that is, there is a time span of 3 days where Peter was in the custody of the NIA. the NIA has a chance to take to take some kind of evidences from the Peter, as he is the one of the key conspirator of the offense. Here in the present case which I mentioned, Munshi Singh Gautam and others, here what the respondents council has been contended is that, sir, there is some involvement of the NIA behind the death of the Peter. So we are claiming that we are claiming that the NIA sir, am I audible?
You are audible. You are audible. Kindly proceed.
Thank you, sir. NIA has done something. NIA has missed something mysterious thing, which left the death of the Peter a question mark, sir.
Okay, proceed. Proceed further.
Whether the accused have subjected to medical examination as prescribed in the guidelines of the DK Basu case, sir. Here, the Honorable Supreme Court, in one of its landmark case, DK Basu versus State of West Bengal, clearly gave some of the guidelines to the police officers that are
Just
to
a
be.
minute. Just a minute, speaker number 2. Mr. Shukla, can we extend the time if you so wishes?
Yes, so I think 5 minutes.
5 minutes to each of the team. Okay.
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 Thank you, sir.
Courtmaster, kindly note we are extending the time by 5 minutes for both the teams. Speaker number 2, proceed.
Thank you, sir. In DK Basu was the state of West Bengal, certain guidelines were laid down which are to be followed while making arrest, sir. Under this concerned case, the points 7 and 9 are to be considered, which follows as the arrestee should, where he so requests, be also examined at the time of his arrest, and the major and minor injuries, if anything present on his or her own body, must be recorded at that time. The inspection memo must be signed by the arrestee and the respective police officer at the time of the arrest. And in the point of 9 of the guidelines, the arrestee should be subjected to medical examination by the trained doctor for every 48 hours during the detention in custody by a doctor on a panel of approved doctors appointed by the health services of the concerned state or union territory. Here, the NIA has lacked both the guidelines, sir. Neither the inspection memo nor the medical examination for every 48 hours has been done. So it clearly states that NIA there is a loophole in the investigation or in the process of the investigation which is done by the NIA. Again, in Sheila Base versus State of Maharashtra, the Supreme Court also held that the arrested accused persons must be informed by the magistrate about his right to get medically examined under Section 54 of the Code of Criminal Procedure in case of any torture or mistreatment in the police custody, sir. May I proceed for the next issue, sir?
Kindly proceed.
Whether there is a scope for the custodial torture, and if yes, can police officers be charged under Section 330 of the Indian Penal Code? So, aforesaid, my co-counsel has also mentioned that the statements admitted by the accused were not voluntary. We strictly contend that the police officers and NIA had made grievous hurt, coercion, and unreasonable force has been used upon them and made them to admit these statements. Under Section 330 of the IPC, NIA is punishable for causing grievous hurt and to extort the confessions by the accused. In Queen Emperor versus NC Mukherjee, it was held that the principal object of the section is to prevent torture by the police of the accused while in the custody of the police or otherwise. If the arguments are satisfied, can I continue with the further issues, sir?
Yes.
Whether all the accusations on the accused are proved beyond the reasonable doubt. As we said earlier, that the investigation during the process of investigation, the respondents council has many reasonable doubts from them. In the present case, there are certain issues that are needed to be proved beyond the reasonable doubt. Here, some of them are NIA did not find the route where the FICN, if so, NIA has contended that the accused Samir and Monu have collected the FICNs. It lacked where the FICNs have been printed and how the FICNs have reached to the Kalu and then to Samir and Monu to reach to Peter, who is in Pulwama. Pulwama. Next, Monu and it also claimed that Mono and Kalu were also done previous transactions regarding the FICNs, but it did not collect any kind of informations regarding their previous transactions. It clearly says that there has been something fabricated to involve these youth who are working in the voluntary organization, who are opposing the agenda government ruling government agenda. And also Iqbal Khan, who is also the common friend of all the 5 accused, has been part of in all the general meetings, in all the youth campaigns, has been exempted from the case by the NIA in order to who favored the NIA in order to frame false accusations on the accused A1, A2, A3, and A4 and A5. So here, it was also mentioned by the NIA that Sohail is the main mastermind and the main key conspirator behind all this, who is in touch with Lashkar-e-Taiba. But NIA has failed in finding Sohail, in finding the whereabouts of the Sohail and all the details of the Sohail. And the postmortem report has been not collected from for the Peter, and the family members of Peter have also not been informed regarding the death and regarding the accusation framed upon him, sir. If the council is satisfied with the arguments, can I sum up the arguments and proceed with the prayers?
Yes, wrap up quickly. Wrap up your submission quickly.
Whereof, in the light of the issues raised, arguments advanced, and authorities cited, may this honorable court be pleased to find that all the accused shall not be held liable for the offences charged on him. The second one is NIA should be held liable upon section 331 of the IPC for causing grievous hurt to accused to make confessions. And the third one is NIA shall be held liable for suspicious death of the Peter. All of which is most humbly and respectfully submitted from the Respondents Council. Thank you.
Rebuttal, speaker number 2, rebuttal. Rebuttal arguments, please.
Team 535, please begin your rebuttal round.
Prosecution, any rebuttal?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, audible.
Okay, sir. Sir, the learned counsel for the respondents haven't produced any substantive arguments and the authorities to prove the innocence of the respondents. The trial is already in its final stage, and the respondents are simply trying to waste the time of this honorable court by getting into the technicality of the procedure. Even if the prosecution has failed to comply with some of the procedures, that doesn't mean that the accused can be acquitted on merely this basis. Also, the trial is set in 2015. The counsel for the respondents have relied on authorities after the year of the 2015. How can they refer to the cases from the future? The respondents have contended that the police had filed the FIR after raiding the train and detaining the accused. According to them, the police failed to file the FIR after receiving the information of the cognizable offense. But the case is that the FIR can only be filed after the actual commission of the offense. FIR cannot be filed before the actual commission of the offense. They have twisted the facts as per their convenience and tried to blame the National Investigation Agency for the death of accused.
Just a minute. You meant to say the commission of offense is essential for the registration of FIR?
No, it is not necessary, but when it is a cognizable offense, and they have said it was merely an information which is not sufficient to file an FIR against any person, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
The respondents have contended that trafficking and possessing of fake currency notes is not an offense of waging war against the government of India. The accused are, but the prosecution has submitted that the accused are charged under section 489B and C of the Indian Penal Code for the trafficking and possessing of the fake Indian currency notes, not for waging war. They have been separately charged under section 121 and 123 of the Penal Code for waging war against the government of India. Also, they have wrongfully submitted to the jurisdiction of the Honorable Court, which is under section 173 subclause 2 of the Criminal Procedure Code. The said section talks about the filing of the charge sheet, not of the jurisdiction, sir. They are not properly aware of about the facts. The information was received on 23rd of Feb, not on 24th of February, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. I rest my rebuttal, sir.
Thank you both the team.
Thank you to all of you. You have addressed, actually, you are very good at your arguments. And rest we will give our decision in our marking scheme. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Thank you, sir.
sir, has defense presented its rebuttal?
If they want, we can permit. But
Yes.
Yes, sir, we want to present a rebuttal.
kindly proceed.
Just take only 2 minutes for rebuttal. Quickly wrap up your submission.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, as the prosecution said that this is the final stage of the trial, since they have not come up with any proper evidences apart from the accused statements. So I think this is not a fake allegations or wasting the time of the court, sir. And also in their memorials, we found out some loopholes, and we are not trying to prove something that NIA was being wrong with the case or something else. We are just finding out. We are just trying to put behind this honorable court that some of the important facts which are hidden in this fact, sir. Like in their memorial page number 17, they mentioned that the petitioner counsel said that respondents are guilty under section 16, 17, 18 and 20 even when our clients were not carrying any bombs or explosive materials, and also no death was resulted because of my client, sir. More importantly, elements of crime was not satisfied, sir, and also proved that the crime is not accomplished. There is no intention, so they can be come up with the section 34 and say that there is a common intention of all, because Samir and Monu were not aware of any bomb blast planning, or they don't have any explosive items. So I think respondents are not guilty for this, sir. I rest my
Excuse me,
rebuttal.
sir. Can I contend to their statement for a minute?
No, not now. You have already given your rebuttal. It is all over now.
Okay, much obliged, sir.
मेरे को बोलना पड़ता है.
Courtmaster can end the meeting now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, teams, for presenting your case. Now, I request all the teams to kindly lead the meeting. Judges, you are free to discuss the case with your fellow judge. EC 549 researcher, kindly lead the meeting.
शुक्ला जी, केस डिस्कस करना है या मार्क्स डिस्कस करने हैं?
सर, मार्क डिस्कस करने हैं. बेसिकली जो डिफेंस के लिए काफी इजी केस था, तो आप एक बार अपने बता दे. तो मेरे अकॉर्डिंग तो प्रोसिक्यूशन ने मेहनत करी है.
ये जो रिसर्च, ये जो नंबर 1 है, ये थोड़ी फास्ट हैं, बट मतलब.
शुक्ला सर, धन्यवाद.
नमस्ते मैडम, नमस्ते.
धन्यवाद सर, आपको भी धन्यवाद.
थैंक यू.
सर, अभी दिनेश सर से टेलीफोनिकली बात हुई थी, आज मैंने देख भी लिया.
बात हुई थी? अच्छा, अभी बात हुई है, सॉरी.
कल तक तो मैं बहुत ही ज्यादा बिजी था, इसलिए बात भी नहीं हो पा रही थी. जी
सर, टीम की परफॉर्मेंस कैसी लगी आपको?
टीम की ठीक थी, प्रोसिक्यूशन साइड जो थी मेरे अकॉर्डिंग तो मतलब जो प्रोसिक्यूशन ने थोड़ी मेहनत करी थी, क्योंकि डिफेंस के लिए काफी ये था कि जो वो कर सकते थे काफी कुछ। क्या दिनेश जी मैं सही कह रहा हूँ?
आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं शुक्ला जी। मैं एक मेरे को थोड़ा सा ये है, जो ये मूव कोर्ट का प्रोसीजर है, मुझे लगता है कि कुछ रियलिटी से थोड़ा सा अलग है, कई जगहों पर रियलिटी से थोड़ा सा अलग है,
थोड़ा सा अलग होता है
Yes,
क्योंकि मैंने ये देखा है कि जो नोट्स भी है, मेमोरियल्स भी है, या जो केस लॉस भी है, तो कहीं कहीं ये लगता है कि ये कौन से ईयर के स्टूडेंट्स होते हैं, बेसिकली फाइनल ईयर होता है या पहले के ही होते हैं?
sir, third, fourth, fifth.
एक
Third, fourth,
फाइनल ईयर नहीं होता एक्चुअली। एक थोड़ा सा हमारे यहाँ पर एजुकेशन सिस्टम भी थोड़ा ऐसा है ना कि उनको प्रोसीजर तो सिखाया जाता नहीं है, दे आर जस्ट गिवन बुक्स एंड ऑल, तो वो प्रोसीजर में कहीं ना कहीं लगता है कि प्रोसीजर पता ही नहीं होता कई जगहों पर ना। लेकिन ठीक है, वो तो कॉमन प्रॉब्लम है।
नहीं, अटेम्प्ट बढ़िया था सर,
हाँ, attempt बहुत
Really, we are glad
Attempt बढ़िया था, कोशिश
to
अच्छी
see
करी
both
थी।
of you, that you both have devoted your precious time with the students and with our team, sir. Sir, thank you so
That was
much.
our pleasure. That was our
Sir, please
pleasure.
share the marks, sir. Sir, please share the marks.
अच्छा, ये जो मार्क्स हमने देने हैं दोनों में, ये दोनों लोगों को जो परफॉर्म है, दोनों लोगों को अलग अलग देना ना, देर आफ्टर लाइक 200 नहीं, 200 प्रोसिक्यूशन को मैं दूंगा और 200 प्रोसिक्यूशन को शुक्ला जी देंगे।
हाँ जी, हाँ जी।
और फिर ऐसे ही 200 डिफेंस को शुक्ला जी और 200 में।
हाँ हाँ
ठीक है,
सर, आप
तो वो
दोनों
मैं
लोगों को मार्किंग करिए अपने अपने हिसाब से।
ठीक है, फिर वो आपको व्हाट्सएप कर देना है हमने पीडीएफ पे।
ओके
ठीक है,
ओके, थैंक यू
ठीक
सो
है,
मच सर।
थैंक यू शुक्ला जी।
नमस्कार सर।